After more than a decade of winning sports car championships for Ford, Steve Saleen decided it was time to build his very own car. The car that Saleen decided to build? The Saleen S7, building America's first mid-engine supercar. In typical American fashion, he decided to stuff a big 427 7-liter engine right in the middle of the car, giving it no traction control and no ABS. Saleen was a company that was built on winning at the racetrack, and the S7 was no exception. They built the S7R, they went on to win at Laguna Seca, FIA GT races in Europe, and a podium at Le Mans. Its striking shape gave it its winning performance on the racetrack and also its iconic poster boy look. With beautiful flat sides, a huge belly pan that stretches the entire length of the car, and almost 100 gills, fins, and canards. One of the things that's most impressive about this car is the aero. I mean, you look down here, carbon fiber everything. The canards here, and then back here, the relief canards here that's gonna take all the air and suck it out of the wheel well so it doesn't get trapped and stay dirty in there. Fins up top here, they're gonna give the car some downforce. Then this super sleek scoop that's gonna ram a bunch of air back towards the engine. And then for all you guys that are really into aero, the thing you love about this car is how flat the sides are on this thing. I mean, just look at how beautifully flat this is back here. This creates so much side force that it really keeps the rear end stuck to the track. With a space frame, honeycomb infused chassis, and a full carbon body, this thing's pretty light, just over 2,800 pounds. Without putting a big obnoxious wing on it, the amount of downforce this car creates is astronomical. At 160 miles an hour, this car creates the exact same amount of downforce as the car weighs. So any quicker, you could theoretically drive the car upside down and it would stick. Coming around to the back of the car here, before we pop the trunk, you'll see this little sticker. Mr. Saleen wanted to remind everyone just how many manufacturers' championships he won. With this goofy key fob, you really got to know what you're doing to operate this. To pop the rear trunk, buttons 3 and 4. And when you pop it, you see just how lightweight this car is. This deck lid weighs nothing. And as we open up the trunk, have a look. The lightweight theme continues. It's really a unique design. The number one thing was weight on this car. Suede up here and carbon fiber down here. You'd really have to pack this thing tight if you didn't want your luggage scraping it up. I guess they decided that the suede would just weigh too much if they covered the whole trunk. So what I'm sure was a big selling feature in 2003 was the backup camera. A classic little pencil camera mounted to the rear. I imagine backing this thing up without one of these is a chore. One of the most important aerodynamic pieces on this car is the rear diffuser. This thing is massive. Look at these huge fins. Now they weren't gonna do something ridiculous like put door handles on this car and absolutely ruin the look. That's why they tucked the door release button completely out of sight. When you open the door on this thing and you're about to step over the 1 foot wide sill and you're looking in here, you get the feeling that you're stepping into the cockpit of a proper prototype race car. Tight squeeze. So the first thing you notice obviously are these big red race belts, 5-point harness. This thing was built for the track. Second thing is my feet barely reach the pedals, but there's nothing I can do about it. This seat is fixed. The idea was for each new owner that just like a race car, they'd go to the factory, they'd get fully fitted for the cockpit. Well, I'm sure if the weather was nice enough and I could actually drive this thing, I could find a way to reach the pedals. There is a little bit of adjustment on the steering wheel. Couple inches forward and back and up and down. But as far as the seat goes, you are locked into place. When you wrap your fingers around the steering wheel for the first time, it really reminds you of one of those early 2000s PlayStation steering wheels. This is really like Gran Turismo in here. With an unmarked chrome Momo knob here, they wanted to make sure that you remembered that it was a 6-speed and the shifting pattern. They put a little sticker here just to show you, right next to the Saleen S7 badge, 03, number 21. Just under 100 of these things built. I don't think there's anything that screams 2003 more than this. After sitting in the car and looking through this rearview mirror, the thing is absolutely useless. You can't see anything out of the back. You can bet that everyone backing one of these things up in the parking lot is looking at that camera. Really, the materials and the finish on these cars is quite nice for a supercar. Again, that beautiful suede in here with lots of cushioning in the headliner and that same suede that they used in the trunk. Adding to the feeling of this thing really being a cockpit in a race car is the way that the footwells swoop and put your feet right at the pedals. You have no option. Your feet are offset. The cabin narrows to the point where you have just over 12 inches for your feet. You get your feet down there and you can feel those AP racing pedals. Heaviest thing on this car has to be the glass. There's no way their race cars had this glass. Everything is really on display for you here. The big Windsor 427, you can see where the fuel line comes in off the side, right down to the fuel tank. You can see where all the plumbing and the braided lines are. Almost everything is on display, but the one thing that you can't see through here is down to the ground because of the massive belly pan on this thing. You can see how the hood scoop is plumbed with these two big hoses on either side. Because I think their focus was really racing and the cars had such low production numbers, there was a bunch of stuff that they got away with. I mean, they didn't even have to put airbags, driver's side or passenger in this thing. And there was things that they just really didn't install correctly. Like the emergency trunk release for if you got stuffed in the trunk, you could open it up. Well, the problem was they put it in the engine bay, not in the trunk. You come down to the rear wheels here, you get these big beefy 7-spoke chrome 20-inch wheels, and then you look into the wheel well. All you can see is the rear sway bar hanging out and the space frame chassis. This thing is a full-on race car under the skin. I love how unapologetically this thing is a race car. I mean, look at this. It just reminds you of a pit stop at Le Mans where the guy has the fuel jug and he just dumps it in. Despite how striking the design is on the car, I think the most conspicuous thing about the car is how you can open the doors with the remote. All right, check this out. When you press the button to open the door automatically, it's like a ghost is pressing the door release button. And of course, kind of all standard Ford stuff, Ford turn signals, Ford buttons. It's not like Saleen was gonna go spend a bunch of money to develop everything on this car. They were gonna use off-the-shelf Ford components. It's kind of neat here, actually. The center console has a 3M coat with Steve Saleen's signature on it. I guess that way the signature wasn't permanently on the interior of the car. Now, they did build a twin turbo in this car, giving it 750 horsepower. But this car is the naturally aspirated V8 7-liter, giving it 550 horsepower. So you put the key in, turn it all the way, and then you press the button on the left-hand side here to fire this thing up. Let's see how this thing sounds. So now we have to ask ourselves, do you need a car like this? No, no one needs a car like this. But do you want a car like this? If you want the most underrated American-made, corn-fed V8 mid-engine supercar ever built, yeah, you want a car just like this. Thanks for watching. Be sure to drop a like and a comment now to help our channel get seen. Hit subscribe and check out our other videos for more Legendary Motorcar.